We are kicking off this Feel Good Friday with news on the UEFA Champions League. The 8 matchups have been confirmed for the round of 16 following the draw held at the UEFA headquarters in Switzerland on Friday morning, Caribbean time. Here are the fixtures that we're looking forward to in early March. PSG against 6-time champions Liverpool, Aston Villa taking on Club Brugge, Real Madrid 15-time winners against city rivals Atletico Madrid, PSV taking on Arsenal, Feyenoord facing Inter, Bayern Munich, 6-time champions, up against Bayer Leverkusen, Borussia Dortmund up against Lille, and 5-time champions Barcelona taking on Benfica. Plenty of mouth-watering fixtures to discuss, so let's invite our football analyst, Juan G. Arango, to join the discussion. Juan, your immediate reaction having seen the draw this morning?
Send me to Madrid. That's the one. That's the first thing. I mean, as I said yesterday or the other day, I mentioned if in the eventuality of a Atletico Real Madrid matchup, I definitely want to be there during those next few weeks because of the excitement, because of all the even more bossity of it all, because a lot of things have been said, a lot of things have been talked about, everything from referees favoring Atleti to referees favoring Real Madrid to how things are going to go if this were to happen. Well, now it's going to happen. So I mean, there's also a few other enticing matchups that are worthy of note, but this one pretty much tops it all because of the history behind it, and of course because of the context of what's gone on recently in Spanish football.
Yeah, I grew up, Juan, not liking England very much in international sport because
makes two of us.
We were so exposed to the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, and so on that you're always getting the England angles on stories. And even today, a lot of the outlets focused on the Liverpool clash with PSG. Not that it's not a big clash, but I just found that Real Madrid weren't getting the kind of respect as the monumental kings of European football that they should have, based on people's treatment of the draw story this morning.
Well, English-speaking media is also very England-centric and only thinks about itself. So there you go. When it comes to I mean, I remember talking to Dennis Irwin one time at Carrington, and he's saying, "Well, welcome, son. You're here at the biggest club in the world." I said, "Sir, there is a club called Real Madrid." So it's something that is very anglified in terms of what that type of thing is. But yes, you're absolutely right that there is, out of all these, there is no series that's bigger than Atleti and Real Madrid Atleti. So to me, that it ends up being important. I'm not saying that Liverpool Paris Saint-Germain isn't interesting, especially knowing the form that Liverpool have.
It is big. It's a big match for real.
Yeah,
especially how emphatically PSG marched into the round of 16.
You know what? It's crazy to say it, but they're a better team now than when they had Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar, or even before that. This is Lance, and I agree with you. In every sense of the word, PSG is now a team. You don't have these outstanding stars that are standing out over everybody else or trying to stand out over their teammates. It's a group of players that understand what they've been able to do, that understand what Luis Enrique is looking to apply on the pitch, and they've been able to execute it relatively well so far.
Yeah. Before we move on, though, let's delve a little into that Madrid clash there, because it's the clash of the local city rivals. And I know domestically, Atletico are within 1 point of Real Madrid at the moment. Real Madrid and Barcelona joint top of the table on points. Yeah. And Diego Simeone has done some really good work with Atletico this season, as he has been doing for the past decade or so. So how much of a threat then, Juan, is Atletico to Real Madrid's march to a 16th title?
Well, they've always been a big threat. I mean, they've already faced off in 2 Champions League finals in the last decade or so. So threat they are. In terms of how they do that or how it translates to on the pitch form, well, we still have to see, because the last time these two teams played, if that is some type of measure of going by, well, Atleti were a team that in the second half of that match were basically inside of their own 18, defending life and limb to be able to fend off a Real Madrid that ended up drawing against them. So Can something happen here with Atleti in a 2-legged tie? Absolutely. It's happened before. They've been able in the very recent past. Liverpool fans can attest to that. The fact that Atleti has gone in and beaten the defending champs on previous occasions in a Champions League format. So we'll see. I mean, it's a team that has the potential to do it. If there is a team in Europe that could do it, well, they're on that list. So again, it has to be interesting to see, especially in a 2-legged tie.
Yeah, for sure. And players like Antoine Griezmann, Julian Alvarez, they will have to come to the forefront, a step up if Atletico Madrid are to pose a challenge against this firing Real Madrid team. What are your thoughts, though, on how Julian Alvarez has gone into this Atletico Madrid setup and really changed them? He's shaken it up for the better.
For the better, and you know, I hate mentioning this, but what he's brought in is added to Atletico Madrid, and what he brought with him also took away what City had at one point.
Yes.
So you see what he's been able to do just by being inserted into our lineup, into a situation that's favorable for him and his qualities. So it ends up being very interesting to see how this Atletico Madrid team is going to be able to maximize him now. Okay, we've gotten to this point with you now to be able to beat right now arguably one of the two best teams in the world. What are we going to do to use you, or how are we going to use you in also a defensive setting to be able to fend off a Madrid side that's still coming into their own defensively, but collectively have been firing on all cylinders?
Yeah, especially with a man like Kylian Mbappe, 28 goals this season, his first season at Real Madrid. Of course, 7 goals in this Champions League. And when I think about it, why would Kylian Mbappe want to be a part of this Real Madrid setup? I'd say firstly to win a Champions League, because it would be a great addition to the accolades that he already has at such a young age. How important is it that Kylian Mbappe in his first season at Real Madrid deliver a Champions League title with this squad?
He said it himself. I mean, he's like, okay, the time for adaptation's over. I want to make history. I want. He came because he knows that if he's going to make a name for himself, he has to play at a big club. I'm not saying that PSG isn't, but PSG is not Real Madrid. And again, I sound like I'm the poster child or the publicist for Real Madrid at this point. But you have to say things the way they are. Real Madrid is the biggest club in the world. They are the team that has been able to set the standard in terms of Champions League play. He knows that. He historically knows that because he supported Real Madrid throughout his life. And he's seen it, and he knows that for his legacy to be able to take that next step, and for him to also get, let's not kid ourselves, he also wants individual accolades, but the collective ones also do overshadow that. He knows that he has to be at Real Madrid to do so.
Yeah, but are you concerned when it comes to Atletico Madrid posing a challenge against Real Madrid because of the fact that they have a really tight schedule? I've been looking at it. They have 2 legs of Copa del Rey. They'll be playing Barcelona. Then, of course, they have La Liga matchups. When I look at the fixtures for that, you know, they have a lot of work to get done there. And now these 2 legs of the Champions League fixtures, do you feel like Atletico Madrid, they have the personnel to, you know, get through all of these matches, and they have to be at their best for all of these matches?
Well, personnel they should have, because of the money that they've invested both in the recent transfer markets and in their youth system. They do have the players to be able to come through. How deep does that translate? Well, that's not an answer I can give right now. But when it comes to being able to give Real Madrid the hardest time possible, maybe right now there isn't a team that can give them a harder time. Maybe, well, if it would have been more realistic, it would have been Barcelona. But right now, Atletico Madrid is one of those teams at the very top of that list that could give them a hard time and maybe even dethrone them if things were to come their way. But again, like you said, they have to have players playing not just one, like you said, maybe 2 or even 3 notches better than they are right now. So it ends up being a difficult task, but it'll end up being a very entertaining aspect of football to watch when it comes to the neutral.
Yeah, one at the risk of sounding too overly English-centric, and I don't want Lance to accuse me of that, but I want to talk about Aston Villa, not because they are based in England, but because the Jamaican Leon Bailey is still playing there, and note the term still playing there, because we don't know how much longer that's going to be for based on some of the happenings in recent weeks and months. But could they have hoped for a better draw? Club Brugge looks good to me. What do you think?
Well, many Atalanta thought that Club Brugge was a good draw. And mind you, I'm not saying it to kind of minimize Club Brugge or say, oh, you know, Aston Villa are a very solid team. We saw it just the other day at Villa Park when they played Liverpool, and almost, I mean, they, for all intents and purposes, almost beat Liverpool in the last minute. So do they have to have a certain level of understanding of who they're playing? Absolutely, because you have a Club Brugge that's very solid. They can counterattack very well. Maybe not as good as, let's say, a Liverpool, not maybe at the same level as a Villa, but can they cause problems away from home, which has been the problem for Villa in Champions League? Is not their form at home, it's their form away from home. And that'll be the big question mark for Unai Emery and company. I've held Unai Emery in very high esteem. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you end up seeing Unai Emery from day one coaching Aston Villa, and you saw the team completely change just days after he took over, days after Steven Gerrard was sacked, and you saw the difference that just one practice made. So imagine what a season and a half has made for this Aston Villa side. So to me, I mean, they could be a dark horse in terms of maybe not winning the Champions League, but really getting to a semi-final stage.
Yeah, very much the case. And I know this is more relevant to the UEFA Europa League, but Emery has had great times in Europe as well. And I was just looking at the draw beyond the round of 16, because at the quarterfinal stage, if Villa get through Club Brugge, it's going to be PSG or Liverpool. And as you just pointed out, Liverpool is a team that they almost beat a couple of days ago in the English Premier League, and that they would be very much familiar with. So overall, they might be thinking to themselves, this is a great opportunity to go deep in the Champions League.
Well, part of the reason why I say that they're a dark horse to get to the semis. I mean, anything can happen in the Champions League, but as you mentioned, it's where you end up seeing how true their form is, because it's been kind of tricky with Villa because of them playing so many more matches, because them playing on so many more fronts, that you end up questioning, saying, well, can they replicate what they've been able to do? Now, if they get to semifinals, you could say to an extent that Villa have replicated what they did last year, although they have been a little bit more underwhelming this season in the Premier League compared to what was 2023, 2024.
Yeah, Juan, we want to move on to another story quickly, but in 10 seconds, just a thought that a lot of people are saying that Barca are in a weak half of the draw based on the brackets.
I mean, Benfica is a team that can surprise you. I believe Bayern is on that end as well.
Yes.
Yeah, Bayern as well as Inter.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you've been speaking to many English people. That's the problem.
All right. All right, let's go
because obviously there's no other English team, so I guess that's why they think everybody else is weak.
Let's move to the USA then, because we're switching now to a story concerning the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Reports have emerged from the non-profit group organization, the United States Travel Association, that the U.S. air travel system is inadequately equipped for the millions of visitors expected for the 2026 FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Summer Olympics in LA, pointing to aging infrastructure, sluggish visa processing times, and outdated security technology as the main obstacles in welcoming visitors to the country. Is that a story that you're aware of?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, traveling around the U.S. and traveling in and out of the U.S., you have to deal with that all the time. And I mean, you don't have a railway system like you do in Europe. I mean, it's all planes, trains, basically. Actually, yeah, planes and trains to a certain extent, or planes and cars, to be more specific. In terms of visas, I know people personally that are still waiting for visas from 2023, and they have their appointments in 2027.
For real?
So that, yeah, I mean, it's happened. You know, you hear that constantly. Well, I have about an 800-day wait, and right now we're less than 450 days away from the World Cup. So keeping all of that in mind, that ends up being that. And again, there's not an effort to become political or anything, but then there's also eventual bans that we'll have in certain countries. What if those countries qualify? And you know, the entry of those fans to that country, or forget the fans, the players and the delegations of said countries, and we kind of get the idea which ones I'm talking about. How are their entry process going to be facilitated or streamlined based on the World Cup and based on that political diplomatic conflict? So there's a lot of things to delve into. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but basically the outer shell that we can really start talking about is that the infrastructure, the logistics. One more thing I'll give you real quick. On Thanksgiving, the weekend in which basically the most travel happens in the United States, per day there were 3 million people. That number is going to almost double during the World Cup, during about a 50-day period. The U.S. doesn't have that capacity and doesn't have that logistics set up right now from that perspective.
Yeah, or a lot of our viewers, one would find that a little difficult to digest, given the fact that the USA is such a superpower, if we think about, things globally.
well, maybe not since January 20th.
I hear you.
Hey, look, keep in mind there's been a lot of firings in terms of airport staff. FAA has also gotten rid of a lot of air control employees. There's been reductions instead of trying to expand and invest on not just the World Cup but also the Olympics, the 250th anniversary of the country, and also amongst other events that are going to be going on in the U.S. That instead of trying to invest in that logistic and trying to upgrade it, well, there's more cuts going on and more reductions than anything else.
Yeah, well, Juan, that's a pretty troubling story. We will be tracking this story because these are two major events coming up in the next few years, and Mr. Trump tends to have answers for a lot of things. Let's see if he can fix this one. We'll be back, Juan,
okay,
with more on the SportsMax Zone, and we'll talk to you next week, I'm sure.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we will. Back in a moment on the SportsMax Zone.